I wanna try and take in all the highs, embrace them for more than a moment's time. I want you, please don't move when I push you away. I know I contradict myself some days, but will you ride the lows with me?
Welcome to Mental Health News Radio. I am your host, Kristin Sunanta Walker. Our goal is to help discussions about mental health be a regular part of your daily life, no different than discussions about physical health. Mental illness can be a topic of discussion under the umbrella of mental health, along with so many other topics. This show is the original program on mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com. Our network of shows are played in over 180 countries and cover more topics under that umbrella than you can possibly imagine. We were talking about mental health long before it became cool and popular to talk about, and thank goodness it has become so popular. We have incredible guests, advocates, patients, experts, people. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy our intro music, a song named Lows, written by Aubrey Toon. You can find her music at www.aubreytoone.com.
That night when I started praying, I cried, will you ride the lows with me? Will you ride the lows with me? When I'm down, my vision gets blurry.
Welcome, Sam and Gina, to the show.
Hi, how are you today? Thank you for having us.
Of course, absolutely. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk with both of you. And we were just saying how Sam and I were like the early birds that get the worm today. We started this thing early.
That's okay.
I always believe in that phrase too. Early bird gets the worm today.
You like that one?
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. I when I turned into a morning person, I could say that. Not when I was, staying up all night. But how are you, Sam? Are you a morning person or an evening person?
Evening person, though. I will admit it.
Yeah.
I like to stay up late all night, but if I was a morning person, I don't think I'd survive.
Oh yeah, we're not morning people.
I'll stay up late all night and enjoy the bars and clubs and all that stuff.
You're not 21.
But I'll be 21.
Oh, we're already planting the seeds. Yeah.
I had some my Papa's beer.
So I want to start with Sam. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to go to your mom, Gina.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Sam Mitchell. I run a podcast called Autism, Rots, and Rolls, and it's about autism, how we cope with daily struggles that you may or may not understand. And that's what the podcast is about, but I also like dogs. I'm a big fan of writing, and I enjoy to play video games like every teenager probably. I love professional wrestling, and just
public speaking,
hanging out with friends.
Yeah, and you also do a lot of public speaking before the pandemic.
Speaking, yep.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll get back to being able to do that again. And Gina, besides being mom.
Yeah. So I'm Gina. I'm his number one fan. I'm mom. I'm also a teacher. I teach 8th grade at a school in kind of southern central Indiana. And yeah, I'm kind of, I'm very involved with Sam's podcast. I always like to say, he's the voice, and everything that gets done that nobody sees, I'm the one doing everything in the background. So
yeah, and I know all about what that is.
I do everything. I do networking. I do
the networking.
Well, we both kind of do that together, I guess.
I can't see Sam not networking,
We do that together. I always joke and say he's my boss. He just pretty much tells me what to do, and then I still haven't seen a paycheck.
Right. So tell me, teaching 8th grade boys, did that in some ways prepare you for Sam?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I've been a teacher of 8th grade for 16 years.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I mean, kids are so different. at different ages. So
Yes.
and even when they're the same age, they're really different. So I've had kids that have reminded me a lot of Sam. And then I've had some that, had different interests. And then I've had Sam I told Sam, if you ever act like that,
Yeah. Here's the example of how you're not going to act. Yeah.
this is not how this is going to happen. So, but definitely prepared me a little bit.
I mean, I'd say that, to anyone having a kid, having a son, and you're an 8th grade teacher, I would say, well, you kind of know what you're in for.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a baby, you have a son, that's pretty much what it is.
Or a
Yeah.
daughter or a
Well, actually, daughters, I've always heard, Sam's my only child, so I've always heard that daughters are, and people probably have different opinions on this, but I've heard that daughters are harder to raise than
Yeah.
boys. But I think it's just a different beast with boys and girls, because when I'm teaching, I can take a room full of kind of rowdy, rambunctious boys, but I have a really hard time with girls with attitudes.
Oh,
That's something that I don't tolerate very well. So,
yeah, I don't either. I'm right there. But I have one child too, and he's a boy. So yeah, and I don't do frilly girly
Yeah.
dress up stuff because I wasn't like that either. So yeah. So Sam, how old, just for our listeners to know, how old were you when you were diagnosed with autism?
or a 4.
4. Okay. Do you remember that at all?
Mom, she's better at this part.
I know, but I want to know you. Like, I'll get to your mom, but like, because at 4 years old, I don't remember anything. So
I can't remember it though. That's the problem. That's
okay.
why. I mean, if I give you more, I would.
I mean, as far as when he was 4, now of course later, I guess I can tell you. So
Yeah.
Sam, when I was pregnant with Sam, I was like middle 20s. Sorry, Betty. And it was a very normal pregnancy, but I was very sick for like 4 months, 3 times a day, had like evening sickness. Like it wasn't even morning sickness. And it was just horrendous. And so, but then after that, like 5 or 6 months, I was fine. And then I had an emergency C-section, and it really wasn't Sam. It was me, like anatomy, like my body was just had a hard time. So I had an emergency C-section. And then, it wasn't really until Sam was, I want to say like 1 or 2, that autism even popped into my mind. When I think back on it, he did miss milestones. He didn't roll over and walk and crawl. He did it really fast, like when he was almost a year old. And so, I mean, I knew like that's probably not very typical, but doctors were like, it's okay. Like they do it at different, stages. And so that I kind of remember that. And then I remember too, when he was really little till now, even when he was a baby, he never looked at the camera.
Still don't.
He still doesn't do that. But as a child though, I didn't really think about it. But when we look at pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, he was 6 months old. And when I would say, hey Sam, look at mommy, he looked the other way. I mean,
that is so funny. Yeah.
From a very young age. And I never thought, oh, he doesn't look at the camera, he's probably autistic. I never thought that. So, but then, he was very delayed in speech. When he was 2, he was saying like 10 words, which wasn't like real typical. And I mean, we had him in speech therapy, but I still wasn't, just worried about it. But then we started noticing the biggest thing, he didn't play with his toys. He organized everything. And it was like very sophisticated, which was really cool because
I was going to say, I would have liked you to be friends with my son with that skill, Sam.
It's just like, he was taking things, and he was not even 2 years old. And I just remember he had this big bag, literally like 250 pieces of that plastic food that my mom got him to play with.
My gosh, I remember that stuff. I played with that too.
He was obsessed with it. He loved it. And it was really fun. But then I noticed he was putting things in categories. Like he would put bumpy things in a category, and then he would put fruits, and then he would put things in a box. And I'm like, he's not even 2 years old. He's not really talking, but he's able to like organize this stuff. So then,
I like organizing, as you can tell.
yeah, I mean,
I love it.
you still do. I need to take some lessons off of you guys. But anyway, then he started lining things up. That was the biggest thing that I was like, oh my gosh, because it was like he would line that food up like trails all over the house.
I thought you said lighting things up, and I was going to
Oh,
say,
no.
oh my gosh, how did you deal with a little pyromaniac?
He never did that.
Lining, listeners, in case you don't have an ear problem like I obviously do right now, lining things up.
And he still does, like to this day, if he is trying to like organize something and he needs to like not pick it up or something, he puts it in a line. So anyway, he did that, and if we messed it up, he would just like have a complete major
Meltdown. Yeah.
meltdown. So we noticed that, and then he hated loud noises. He hated his routine missed. Like, it was just classic textbook
Right.
autism. And so I had a couple of kids in my class that had autism. And so I wasn't an expert by any means, but I kind of knew just based on them.
Yeah, you had the heads up.
Yeah. So when the behavioral psychologist gave us the diagnosis when he was 4, we really didn't react. Like, we kind of knew already. And I did go through a very short phase where I was like, why is this happening to me? Like, I did everything right.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was pregnant, I put headphones on my belly so he could hear music, and I read to him, and I took care, like I exercised, I did everything.
Yeah.
And so I was like, why? And so I kind of felt sorry for myself for just a very short time. But then we started educating ourselves, and we've always raised Sam like, yes, you have autism. We recognize that, but that you still have to function, and you still have to be a part of society. So you got to kind of buck up and let's do it. So that's kind of how we raised him.
So Sam, would you, because I've read different things and I've listened to you on some shows, and I mean, you're hilarious too, which is always a plus, but
Well, thank you. I don't try really, but
I know that's the best part of when someone's funny is when they're like, they're not even trying. You're just naturally funny.
I don't even realize I am. Sometimes I'm like, I really was at that time.
You were really funny. You are
Thank
a funny
you.
person.
So the thing that always gets me, because the way I was raised, I was always around kids with autism. So I never thought anything of it. My grandmother was a volunteer, and I was always around her. And so and I was very little. So I didn't even need to be told this is what, these kids have or anything. that's how kids were. Right. What I noticed was how my friends would react to my, these kids that I was around, how their reaction to it, society's reaction to it. And it just appalled me. I was very upset about this, and I was overly sensitive about things. So, but one thing I always appreciated was if I needed a real honest opinion about something, I knew the friends I could go to get it. So Sam, you had mentioned something about, what may look like rudeness to others. That's just honesty and bluntness. So how have you sort of navigated that as you're a teenager, you start hanging out with, and there's things that, neurotypical kids do and don't do. And you kind of have to navigate this whole being blunt and honest thing.
All right. Well, to answer that question, honestly, the first thing you got to do with a problem is, what's the first thing you do? Answer. You recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I recognize that that's an issue. When you're 9, oh, that's cute. Ha, funny. When you're 18, no, that's not funny.
But I think that's a huge thing that he's able to say, yes, like I do that. That's
absolutely.
That's really, to me, most 18-year-olds are going to be like, yeah, whatever. But he doesn't do that. I mean, he says, yes, like I do this, please help me. So I think that's really critical.
Well, thank you. But yes, because in my opinion, honesty and bluntness, to me, those are 2 separate words. They're not. To me, they're the exact same thing.
Right.
Because, one's just being a little ruder. It's just being honest, but just kind of the not nicer way, the cleaner way. And that's the clean way of saying it. But anyway,
Well, I mean, I always say it's like you don't put flowers around things before you say them.
yeah, you don't.
And I mean, I always appreciated that because I would hear that. Like, I'd be hanging out with my friends that were on the spectrum and they'd say, "Oh, you've got a booger in your nose." And they'd say it in front of, everybody at the dinner
I
table.
would too. I would
Yeah,
tell
and
you,
I
get
loved
out. You're
that.
hanging, it's hanging. Come on.
Exactly. Or, I mean, we had a thing where I would put my lips down in front and make my nose holes bigger, and I would go booger check.
Booger tea.
That's great.
Well, booger check. Like check my nostrils for any impediments there. But I mean, so when you are around that and that becomes your normal, and anything that sort of offended somebody else, I found funny that they were offended. So anyway, it just was very interesting to me. So I think what happens that's not great is society tends to label this it doesn't tend to, does label this as a disability, as this like what you just said, Sam. Well, it's not good that I do this kind of a thing. And that's not always true. That's not always the case. So how do you kind of navigate, both of you? This is what I do. Some of this is really good stuff, but society is the one with the problem. And I'm going through all the things you do when you're, a young man and you're figuring out your identity and all that good stuff.
I already figured out my identity, which is not a lot of children have done, I guess, or 18-year-olds. But That's a good question. I just have to apologize and just hope to the best that I won't make an enemy. Honestly, that's the best way to handle it when you do that. And sometimes they'll agree, sometimes they won't. But I don't think they're going to hold against you forever. I mean, some will, but some aren't,
Well, and just the fact that you recognize it too helps him,
because
he'll think, okay, we're going here now. Like I gotta, and like Sam, socially, I've noticed forever, he's had to study, like with settings, like how are people acting right now?
Right.
I can remember we went to my husband's grandma passed away. Oh, it's probably been about 5 years ago. So Sam was younger. But I remember it was the first funeral he had ever been to with someone that he knew pretty well. And
no, I didn't.
Well, you knew who she was.
I knew who she was, but I wasn't like
right,
close
not real close to her. But he was.
I only went because I supported my dad.
Yeah, he was sitting in the church, and I noticed, my husband was upset, and she was almost 100, but it still was sad, and we were crying, and she had written a letter herself that the preacher read. So we were like, oh my gosh. So anyway, it was really emotional, but I looked at Sam and I kept seeing him lean up and like look at my husband and like look at everybody around. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
Like it didn't come.
Yeah, I felt bad. I mean, I should have been crying, but I couldn't. I didn't know her.
Well, and I guess just socially, that's what he does. He has to, things that come naturally for someone that's not on the spectrum. He'll have to study and he'll have to figure out a routine, and every time, like he's a senior now, but every time a school year started, he would literally have to go to school the first 3 or 4 days and figure out a routine. Like, when do I have time to talk? When do I need to focus on my studies?
Right.
And then he would say to me, okay, I got it, Mom. Like,
for now,
I've got to figure it out. So, but he would have to, it took, I think, more effort to do that.
Yeah. And it can be hard. And like, I know for me, I need to stop asking long winding questions for this talk. Sam, you and I both, and Gina, you probably, I'm sure you did too, but we all really, love Dr. Temple Grandin, and we've both been able to have her on shows. So one thing that I love about her every time I've interviewed her is I just have to get to the flipping point. Otherwise she's like, you've lost me.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep. That's me too. I'm like, cut the crap.
Yeah.
Come. Just tell me what you want to tell me. Don't
wind around. Yeah.
She really, I just respect that though. Like, she's a strong woman that knows what she wants, and she knows the information she needs, and she's very honest. Like in the interview, remember Sam, she said, I don't get chit chat. I don't
Yeah.
get it. She was like, she'll go to dinner with people. And she said, everybody's just laughing and chit chatting. And she's just like, I just want to talk about work. I don't really see the point. So she's amazing. She's one of the most admirable people that I know.
Yeah, she is amazing. And boy, does she get to the point, and she doesn't mince words either. I'm just saying, I don't think that that's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad, that's a bad way to be. I think it can, we can look at it as, oh, we should be acting like what society deems acceptable, or we can say, wow, this person is really forthright.
Well, as from a mother's standpoint, I do agree with you. And I do agree with Sam because he has told me before that is his opinion. My thing is, I feel like although society does that, and I don't like that because I want Sam to, and he does, embrace who he is and just be him. Like that's what I've always wanted for him. But at the same time, for employment and important things, unfortunately, I do feel like sometimes, okay, like I understand that you're very blunt, but if you're at your job and you're in a board meeting or you're around really important people, you're gonna have to hold back a little bit, and that is the way that it is. And so I've tried really hard to teach him about a balance. I don't even know if I know that balance, but I agree with you. But then I just think for survival and for, I think you do have to be at least conscious of it, I guess.
Very true. Very true. So, Sam, doing your show, doing the podcast, all the things that you do, did you know about podcasts ahead of time for a while, or was it something that you heard about and then boom, you wanted to do it? How did that come about?
It was by my school's media club where I got interested in joining through a Eastern Green Riley dance marathon. When I saw them coming down with cameras, wondering what they were doing, asked them. Fast forward to sophomore year, found the podcast, did media club for a while, and still do, and work our own school's podcast, which is Thundercast. Then I decided to take it a little further because I got tired of Thundercast, wanted to add something to my agenda, and then boom, you get Autism Rocks and Rolls.
Nice. How long have you been doing it?
Since October 2019.
Okay, so you've got a good time in. How was it for you, Sam, dealing with pandemic stuff where you can't go out and not wear a mask and you have to socially isolate and everything? How was that for you, and what impact did that have on your podcast?
Oh, well, I've been focusing on it a lot more since the pandemic, and it's therapy to get me through the pandemic.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you straight up too. I'm not going to do I'm not doing this if we have to wear a mask or social distance. That was my attitude at first, but now that it's just kind of since time's going on, and I don't really see that much social distancing, and mask is just really employment, then it's fine. But when it started at first, I'm like, okay, I'm not going anywhere unless we have to wear if we have to wear a mask and social distance.
It's
What was
wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was how did you handle that, Gina?
It was tough. I'm more flexible with things, and I'm kind of a realist. So I'm like, well, it stinks, but it is what it is. And, we can worry about it or not. It's not going to change anything. So that's my attitude about a lot of things. But it was tough just trying to help him. And, he would say, when will it be over, Mom?
Right.
And I he likes an answer. He wants, even if I said, well, Sam, it will be over in October of 2021. We'll be done. Like things will be back to normal. And he would have been like, okay. And he would have carried on and it would have been fine. But he can't take the unknown. There's that's gray area. And so people that are on the spectrum typically are very black and white. It's like it is, or like it's either this or this. Like, how can you be in the middle? And so that was really tough. I mean, there were some very tough days of getting him to just get out of bed. And, but we did it. I mean, we got through it, and I gave him his space, and, so it was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty heartbreaking sometimes.
Yeah. And that's how it's been. Everybody has had their own tough, challenges with this. Yeah. And Sam, on those days where you just didn't feel like getting out of bed, or, or just were like, I want an answer to this, what would you be saying to yourself in your own head?
I hate this, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. So how would you say people should, I know we talked about this a little, but how would you say people your age should talk to someone with autism?
Like everyone else, and you'll learn from us as time goes on, and you'll definitely see our quirks, but cool quirks.
Yeah, but I think everybody has quirks. I mean,
I said a cool quirk though.
I think everyone has a cool quirk.
I don't think that. I think everyone has quirks, but it could be a bad quirk too.
That's true. That's very true.
You see, I'm very persuasive as well, as you can tell.
Yes, I can. I'm sure that there, have you, I'm asking a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So how many times, Gina, can you even count how you've been like, I just don't want to argue about something?
Oh, like today. Let that out. No, like that, it happened a lot. Now, what Sam and I run into is he and I are very similar in personalities. Like I'm not on the spectrum and he is, but
we have the same humor to the point where it's disgusting.
Yeah, we have the same kind of gross humor and just we think things are just ridiculous.
Yeah, we talk about
funny.
Like fart jokes. Yeah, I'm all about that too. I'm all about the fart jokes. So
we also are very we're also very stubborn, and we also like to be in charge, and we like to be right, and he does that honestly. So
from your side of the family.
Yeah, that kind of comes from my side of the family. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, there were times that I'm like, you win. Like I'm not arguing about this. But then there have been times like I'm your mom and this is what's going to happen.
Well, then sometimes I don't do it though. I won't do it.
Well, I mean, and it does get tougher. Like when you have a child that's on the spectrum, Sam's now an adult. Somebody asked us the other day in an interview, they said, what kind of challenges did you have? And that was very hard to answer because when he was 5, the challenge was he didn't want to put on a shirt. And it was a 2-hour full-blown meltdown when he had to put on a shirt. And that was 5 years old. And then when he turned 10, he was being somewhat aggressive because he was getting an attitude and he would kick things and then hit 16, his mouth, was just mouth, but that's pretty typical.
Yep.
So anxiety, hit pretty hard when he was about 16, 17. So it changes. The struggles change.
Yeah, you have all the benefits, quote unquote, of a teenager and some extra.
Yep, absolutely. So much beauty to it too. Like
absolutely.
He's got so many skills and talents, and he's so smart and creative, and and that's because he has autism.
And liberating.
What do you mean?
Helpful.
Yeah, you are very helpful.
For sure.
The chemistry between you two, it's so funny. You got mother-son love, and that gets you through the arguing and the but I'm sure you guys have to go to your corners every so often.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Especially with this business, because he can tell you more about that, but it did start as a hobby and now he has major sponsors and which we need to talk about that in a second because we always like to give them a shout out. But he, has major sponsors and he's sold lots of ad space and we've been approached about starting a nonprofit and things are happening really, really quickly and we're like business partners and that gets tough sometimes.
Oh yeah. I've worked with family too my whole life. That can be interesting because then you're having dinner, you want to wind down at the end of the day, but then here's the person you work with and let's just keep talking about it. That can be really.
It's tough. My husband gets a little frustrated sometimes because, he works night shift. And so when we get home from work, he's up, he's slept and he's ready to like hang out, which is we do, but I'm like, okay, we got a podcast, we got to go edit, or I got to do this and I got to do that. So you do have to, when you have another full-time job, you do have to set boundaries with what you do.
Absolutely.
And if she didn't have it, she'd be helping me though.
Yeah. I have to come home though and be like, okay, like this is what time, I'm going to do nothing for I'm going to hang out with your dad and we're going to do family stuff for 3 hours and then we can work on it for a while. So you just have to You just got to draw the line somewhere.
Yep. Set up your boundaries. So let's talk about all the cool stuff that you are doing, Sam. Like talk about the sponsors and what you've created. Tell our listeners all about it.
So yeah, we want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Wellspring Pain Solutions in Bloomington. Sorry. Thank you. Perfection Olive Glass in Bloomington, Salon 45 in Bloomfield, and commercial service, Greene County General Hospital in Linton, Life Paths Counseling, Bell's Built Automotive, and CPA Tax Service.
Amazing.
Yeah, we've got quite a few. The Wellspring Paint Solutions, I do want to give them an extra shout out. They are 100% jumped on board. They are investing in Sam, and they have done so much to help him bring this to the next level. They've changed in their clinics, they've changed their uniforms to say Autism Rocks and Rolls. They made new pins to pass out. They have signs. He's going in for like photo ops here soon. And they've bought him programs like Podit and Podmatch, and they've bought him like microphones, and they believe in him and they believe in his mission, and that's why they're jumping aboard and doing this. We always want to tell them, really, really appreciate them.
Well, Sam, you're doing the podcast, and I know you've done other things too. I know you're doing public speaking, but anything that I've missed in saying?
I'm on TV every once in a while, like WTWO, WTHI. Been on some newspapers, had the guests, sell ads for sure, and sell merchandise, which would be COVID-19 awareness masks, shirts,
nice,
paracord bracelets, and decals.
Wasn't there a book in there somewhere?
No book. I don't have a
no book.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm feeling that that's coming.
Yeah, I think after his first season, which is going to be a little while, we're going to work with some people to do a promotion, like a fancy pants promotion video. So
nice.
That'd be really nice. But his website is www.autismrocksandrolls.com. That is where everything is. And then he also we've launched another sponsorship website that I cannot remember. We just released it a couple of days ago, but that link is on his website as well. But that's all the paperwork and the information. But when he started getting big sponsors, that's when the game changed.
I bet.
And then that's a good thing. I mean, we're always looking for people to jump aboard.
Well, let me ask you my last question, because I'm a huge, huge dog person and also equine person. So, Sam, what is it that when you're with a dog, what is it about dogs that you just absolutely love?
They're sloppy. They're sloppy, like me, but they're friendly, honestly. I'm pretty good with dogs, too.
They're not judgmental.
No, I don't care. Honestly, I don't like little dogs much, but if they're good dogs, I'll tolerate them.
Right? Yeah, I'm not into
the. Doesn't care. I mean, I'll get on the floor and
nice.
With any animal to help them out or just play with them. I don't really care to do that.
He's like the dog whisperer. I'm telling you, we'll go to PetSmart, and we don't take our dogs anywhere because they would just not function well. They're much hyper, but they're big mastiffs too, so they would freak people out. But we'll be in PetSmart or Rule King or something, and dogs are like he's like magnetic. They will just come and just sit and stare at him. Like, I want you. I want you to pet me. So he definitely has a way with dogs.
And Pitbull, remember that I love Pitbulls. That's what I want to get. There's one in Lowe's. I remember walking with Dad, and I was looking at him. I was going to go approach him anyway, but he came and walked to me.
Yeah, my dog Z would love you. She's a Pitbull Husky.
Oh, now I'm coming over.
They're called. Do you know what they're called? Do you know what Pitbull Huskies are called?
Husky?
Close. Pitsky.
I've heard of that before.
That's kind of a cool name for a rat name or something.
Yeah, it is. They are so cool. They have that whole like hyper way that Huskies are, wanting to run like Huskies do, but then they've got that chill kind of Zen vibe that pit bulls can have. They're just so awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, I want to make sure listeners, you know that Sam Mitchell, he's the host of Autism Rocks and Rolls. He's got an amazing website. His mom, Gina Mitchell, is here as well. The website is Autism Rocks and Rolls. And thank you, Sam and Gina, for coming on the show.
Of course.
Anytime. Yeah. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health Podcast and Mental Health News Radio. Hi, listeners. I'll make it quick. These are some really cool places that give discounts and other cool things for listeners of Mental Health News Radio Network. If you want to get amazing help with healing from narcissistic abuse, go to healfromanarcissist.com. If you want CBD products that are the best of the best, I use them myself, go to proze.com and use the code mentalhealth20, mentalhealth20. If you want to get daily perk ups that help retrain your brain to think more positively, go to perkupdaily.com. And also, just because this one's fun, snarkycandles.com. I guarantee you'll love them. Snarky with a Y, SNARKY candles.com. And don't forget, if you want to hear all the shows on the network about first responders, you can go to firstrespondernmentalhealthnetwork.com, and all of our shows that focus on narcissistic abuse, narcissisticabusehealingnetwork.com. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.
But will you ride the low, low, lows with me? Will you ride the low, low, lows with me?
One thing you can always count on at Mental Health News Radio Network and my show is that there will always be dogs around. Why? They are natural healers, excellent for your mental health. The original therapy dog Miles has something to say in just a moment. For now, please check out all of our amazing shows at mentalhealthnewsradionetwork.com and all your favorite podcast apps. Until next time, I'm Kristin Sonanta Walker, and thank you for listening.
Me tonight, and I can ride the low, low, lows with me. I can ride the low, low, lows with me till my vision clears up perfectly. I can ride the low, low, lows with me.
Good boy.